hello. I sort of changed what I was going to talk about during the last panel. I'm really going to focus on, as Warren said, on my project called Lineage Matchmaking in the Archive, but I just wanted to say a little bit about how I got to collaboration, because as a late bloomer to both the art world and academia, it really didn't come through those venues. It came through 20 years or so of working in various collectives that started in the late 60s when cultural and political activism made me a college dropout several times and made me renounce art. You know, how could I be something so self-indulgent as an artist in the face of internet revolution? So instead, my creative energies went into things like guerrilla theater and collective speech writing, the occasional poster, a lot of crocheting of hats to sort of get through endless meetings. But I did participate in a lot of different kinds of collectives that I realize now have really helped form my practice as an artist. Things like a do-it-yourself community of 200 or so women in a 9-day building takeover, with a group of recently converted lesbians writing the chapter in America they call us Dice, which was part of the first issue of Our Bodies, Ourselves, which is kind of a seminal feminist health book. Worked on creating newspapers that had, from 1 to 8 issues of survival time. The Heterodoxical Voice, Read the Paper, Lavender Vision, and participated in the Gay Speakers Bureau, learned how to train people through role-playing, learned to navigate homophobia in high schools among teenagers and also teachers, and various other activities. So the kind of segue activity was when I helped start a magazine called Outlook, which was a national lesbian and gay quarterly. And on that magazine, I was art editor and also on the editorial board. And I worked with academics, scholars, artists, and the community. And at the same time, went back to school as an older undergrad and majored in art. And at that time, really insisted that my art have nothing to do with politics. I felt like I had given up art for politics and did not want to be boxed in. So my route to collaboration has been gradual and is still going on. But I eventually grew to really see the limits of the sort of artist as self-expressive individual unit, and the benefits of working with additional resources that I could create more ambitious projects when I worked with others. That there were a lot of things I really love about collaboration, and that it's becoming really the bulk of my practice. So the project that I'm going to focus on started when I persuaded the GLBT, Gay, Lesbian, Bisexual, Transgender Historical Society, which has really extensive archives that they've been building for about 30 years. It's located in San Francisco, and there are archives like these all over the world. This one's focused mostly on Northern California. And I've done projects with them before. I got a creative work fund to work with them 8 years ago. But I felt like both that I wanted to work with an organization, this was my way to escape the art world, which I have a very sort of ambivalent attitude toward. And also a way for me to work within an organization, not as a paid person, but as somebody who is both part of a community, but also sees things that I'd like to change about that community. So I created this position, and I started spending time in the archives with no idea really of what I was going to do. And finally, what I identified was that I was interested in the archives of individual people who had died, and people who are not famous, people who've never been in the public eye. And this kind of archive, it has a certain significance in a queer community because of the way that art history has not been remembered. And it also has a significance because of the way difference is part of that community, difference across class, race, national, and sexuality lines and gender lines. So I started matchmaking individuals initially artists and writers and composers, but after a while I started even giving up that kind of control and bringing in people who weren't artists and asking each person to come up with a creative response. I formally would introduce them to their archive, and they could choose to accept my matchmaking or not, and that they could come up with a creative response in any media. This work is unfolding in an exhibition that's up right now, future exhibitions. It's going to travel. I'm starting to work on a website, and there have been several performative events because people have created performances that are part of this. And with some people, their work and their inspiration from the dead person's archive is actually extending into work outside of my project, which I find very exciting. So it's kind of got a life of its own where I am in control of the structure, but what people do with that is really something that I don't control. I'm not acting as a curator in the traditional sense. I think my time's up. Thank you.